Well, as all of us know, ministry can sometimes be unpredictable and your week to week work can look very different. And so today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to share with you 6 small hacks to make ministry better.
Thanks for joining us again today on Practical Church Planting. Today we're going to be giving you 6 small hacks to make ministry better. But before we get started, my name is Brian Androsian, and with me is Dylan Dodson. And we're going to give you some small hacks to make ministry better.
I like the reversal.
There you go.
So these are things that anybody can implement,
Mhm.
things learned over the years that, can make ministry more enjoyable, more doable, all that sort of thing.
Yes.
So here we go. And some of these I'm actually pretty proud of because we haven't talked about all these before. Sometimes our episodes are condensing things we've said in various episodes together.
Yeah.
But these are just some little small things that I found helpful. So here we go. Number 1, this is particularly if you're preaching. I'll say what it is and I'll explain what I mean because I think this will hopefully make it a little bit easier. I would say this: give yourself 2 weeks to choose from by prepping ahead of time. What I mean by is when you're going out of town, and let's say you're still going to be there on Sunday, but you're got a vacation planned, and if you're a smaller church or whatever, and you don't it's hard. It's not always easy to just have someone come preach the weekend you want it. It's not always that simple. You can get really stressed out because we're going on vacation, we're going out of town, and we're going to be gone all week, and I've got to write a sermon, and especially if you're trying to take time away, it's how do I do this?
Yeah.
This giving yourself 2 weeks to choose from by prepping ahead of time. You have to be at least 1 week ahead of sermon prep. We've talked about doing this a lot of various episodes. Even if you're not necessarily 1 week ahead, you can still make this happen. So here's what I mean. Let's say on Sunday the 14th, the week leading up to Sunday the 14th, you're going to be out of town.
Okay.
Ideally, you don't want to preach on the 14th, but you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking that week is the only Sunday you can't preach to enjoy your vacation, you could also think of either the 7th or the 14th. So what I mean by that is, let's say you can have someone come and preach, but they can't preach on the 14th, but they can preach on the 7th, but your vacation's already planned for that week of the leading up to the 14th, so you can't change it. What you can do is if you have someone preaching on the 7th, you can still that week preach, study, and prep your sermon as if you're preaching on the 7th, so it's done.
Yeah.
So the following week, you can be out of town, and you can be on vacation or whatever, and when you come back, you need to review it, but it's not starting from scratch. And so that's what we mean by give yourself 2 weeks to choose from by prepping ahead of time. And so, in fact, I'm doing this in August. We've got a church planner coming in, and just because of schedule stuff, we planned a family vacation the week leading up to when he's going to be preaching the Sunday. Sunday afternoon is when we're going out of town, so we're gone the whole week.
Sunday that you're leaving.
But he's going to be preaching that Sunday morning because he couldn't do the following week. But it's not a big deal because I'm going to prep that week leading up to. Now you might say again, I would say when New City was newer, the fact that I enjoyed preaching, but it's still something I thought about during the week, so it's hard for me to fully unplug. That's not the case for me anymore. In fact, I've found that when I'm go on vacation or go out of town, I actually like preaching that first Sunday right away because I feel like I haven't done anything. So it's just a personal weird thing. So I actually enjoy, strangely enough, going on vacation and then preaching that Sunday.
Nice.
But that's how you do it. You give yourself a 2-week window to choose from. So if they can't do the week you're going to be gone, maybe the week beforehand, and then you have a little bit more flexibility when you're going to be out.
Yeah, I think it can be really tough, especially early on, if you don't have a teaching team or if you're not familiar with a ton of pastors in the area that have other pastors on their staff that could come fill in. Then it's it's hard to plan a vacation around it because it's I have to get someone this specific day, and if no one's available, then what do I do?
Right.
And so I think planning vacation first off, as when possible, planning vacations for during the week and not Sunday. I personally I don't think there's anything wrong with having a vacation that leads into Sunday and taking a Sunday off. But I get, especially early on, that might be more stressful to try and make that happen than to actually do it. But having some flexibility and having someone come either day, and that way you can still plan ahead of time. You can still hopefully be able to relax as much as possible because you've already prepped, you've already gone over it. You may just have to review, but it's not like you're having to start from scratch on Saturday night or Thursday or Friday, whatever day you're coming back. I don't know. I think it can make vacations a little less stressful, I guess, or a little more enjoyable.
And this is exactly so. Every August, we take a family vacation to Myrtle Beach because it's cheaper than a lot of other beaches, and there's a lot more stuff to do. And so we do one of the little resort things with they got all these pools for the kids. They have a ton of fun. But I've learned because we've done this 4 or 5 years now. Booking it in January and February is significantly more cheaper than booking it in May or April. I mean, it's way cheaper. And so that's what we did this year. We booked it super early.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who was going to preach what or whatever. And so, but we had to pick this week, and we had a church planner coming in, and we were able to be flexible, that sort of thing. But it makes it a little bit easier. And so it's one of those things that I didn't consider early on.
Mm-hmm.
So you might not have thought about that if you preach regularly, but you can give yourself 2 weeks. Just prepare if they have to come the week that you're going to be gone, the week leading up. Prepare the previous week like you're preaching that Sunday, and it will make your vacation a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, and on a side note, speaking of that, I think it's helpful to plan vacations further out. Like
Mm-hmm.
book it in January, and then you kind of you give yourself some urgency that you have to find someone to do one of those days. Where it's like if you're getting close to it, and then you're trying to kind of make sure you have someone, and then plan the vacation as well, then you can easily get into like this. It's just never going to happen, or it's going to be an inconvenient time for the family or something. But plan a vacation, and then you have some urgency of you got to find someone, or else you're not going to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I bet in most cases you will.
That's a really good point because it's really hard when you're trying to if for preaching, for example, find someone to preach, but also plan your vacation because you're like trying to juggle multiple things. If you set one thing in stone first and then try to find someone to preach, it's a lot more clear about who, like when you need it and what you're asking of people instead of like, well, what do you want? Or what do I want? It just makes it a lot harder. So.
Yep, exactly.
So give yourself 2 weeks to choose from when prepping ahead of time, when you're going out of town, got something going on, vacation. It's a little small hack. Makes it easier.
There you go.
Number 2, make a to-do list of things coming up in your weekly newsletter. So I'll have to explain this one too. We recommend sending like a weekly thing out to your church of like what's going on, upcoming events or whatever, keeping it short and brief. We have, we're the worst at this, we have an episode on this somewhere. I don't know what number it is. You can scroll back. We got to catalog this stuff so people can easily find it.
Hopefully, ChurchGo, who we have our website through, has a good search function.
Yes. Well,
but I haven't actually tried it. So
that's actually a good point. If you're on the podcast, whatever podcast you listen to, whatever app, you'd have to like search forever. But if you go to our website, practicalplanting.com, you can search and you can type in like small groups or giving or social media, and it'll actually pull up like the blog posts of the show notes, so you can find it that way. It's a good point.
And for what it's worth, if it's ever anything that's a little bit more unique, especially, I don't know every podcast app, but like if you have Apple, you can search just your library. So if you just search your library for newsletter, unless you follow like a bunch of church communication things, you're probably not going to get a bunch of different results. You might be able to find it.
So here's what we mean by this. We send one out every Thursday, and what you could do is every Thursday morning, it could be sitting there and be like, okay, what do we want people to know? Yeah. And like trying to not forget to say certain things, because we don't want to put something in there that's like over a month away, because that's too far. So what I do is I used to use it on my whiteboard, but now I have it on I use my Todoist. I have just like its own folder because I'm not always in the office. And I will, when things are coming up, I will put it in my to-do list of like, or my Todoist is the app of on this Thursday, include this new thing. So, if we've got trivia coming up, like if it's over a month away, we're not going to put in the newsletter. Once it's like 3 weeks or closer, I'll put it in. But what if on that Thursday morning, I kind of forget about it and then I hit send? I'm like, oh no. Yeah. I will always proactively be like, here's the things coming up and here's the first week it needs to be included so that I don't forget. And so we recommend sending out something weekly. And that's also a way for you not to be like, what should I send this week? Is make a list of the things coming up and what week they need to be included the very first time, and then you just leave them in there until the event happens.
Yeah, stuff like this makes kind of these smaller tasks on your to-do list of sending out the newsletter not take an hour or not take forever, because you're not sitting there trying to remember if you got everything or trying to, I don't know, look through the calendar or look back through emails to make sure you forgot something. But if you're kind of keeping it a running list of keeping it updated each week, then sending out a newsletter, most likely you're the one that does it, so you can say, but isn't something that you're going to like dread doing because it's going to take forever. But it's quick, you know where everything is, and you can just kind of bang it out, and it doesn't take up a huge chunk of your day.
And another thing that's helpful too is if like there's something I want to share to the church, but it doesn't have to be like a time sensitive thing. I'll just put it in there, and then when the newsletter is not too long, I will include it. So, for example, last week I had this little thing of like, in a minute of learning ministry, a lot of times people think that like if they talk to you, I said this a lot more succinctly, but like if they're like they're taking away your time from meeting with other people. If you're meeting with them, so people apologize a lot. I'm like, that's not the case. I'm really happy to meet with you at any time. In fact, here's my Calendly, which you talked about a lot. Yeah. I just put it in the newsletter. I was like, if you ever need to chat, click this link right here, and you can always find a time. And like the week before, when I first had the idea, we had like 4 events coming up, and we had the prayer and fasting thing, which was like super long. And there was a lot of stuff, and I was like, this is too much. And so if there's like non-time sensitive stuff you want to send too, you can also put it there. And then when the newsletter's a little shorter, you can throw it in. Yep. So make a to-do list of things coming up in your weekly newsletter, and then check it when you write it so that you know what needs to be said when. Yep. Number 3, I remember a few months ago when I first revealed this to Brian, and he was like, "This is amazing."
Game
I don't know
changer.
if he still uses it.
I
or not.
absolutely do.
Okay,
I probably have one that's going to come up soon.
so plug your phones. Well, if you have your ear pods in, maybe your AirPods in or whatever, you might be fine with this. But I'm about to say Siri and Google.
Yeah.
So, Anyway, use Siri if you have an iPhone or Google if you have an Android for time-sensitive reminders. So, we're big fans of Todoist. I have it on my phone where like you can like set due dates for all of your stuff. So, but some things you don't need just the date. You need like a time. And so I use Siri, for example, like our social media calendar. Every week I plan the next week's social media calendar. So this is an example of what I use it for. But there are certain things that I can't schedule ahead of time. So like typically every week we do a clip from the message, like a little 1 minute-ish clip, and we do something called Bible in a Minute. Well, I don't have those. Brian has to edit them. Typically edits them like on Monday for that week. And so I have a reminder on my phone at Tuesday and Thursday at 11:45 a.m. to post message clip one day and Bible in a minute the other day. And what happens is it stays on your phone until you actually complete it.
Yep.
So you don't have to I don't have to do it at 11:45 a.m., but it's the next time I check my phone, it's going to be on the home screen.
Yeah.
And it's going to stay there until I actually complete the task. So it's not like a text message where you read it and it goes away. The reminders are actually one of the, other than my text message and phone calls, is the only thing that I actually have notifications on my phone.
Yeah.
And so like even the little red dot thing stays there. And so when I check my phone if I check my phone at Tuesday at 11:50 and I don't have the video right now, whatever, it's fine. But I know that it's not going to go away till I do it, so I'm going to remember.
Yeah.
Now I have those on repeat, so I repeat.
Yeah.
So those are every week. But if there's like something I need to ask somebody or do something at a certain time at a certain day, I'll say, Siri, without the hey part, so your phone doesn't go off. Remind me at noon on Friday to text this person or to call this person, and it just stays there until I actually do it.
Yeah, I don't do recurring ones. I should do that. That's a good idea. But yeah, I don't have a lot to add. It's been super helpful though, because there's so many things. It's like it's not worth getting out a calendar and giving it like a time slot and taking up like literal real estate on the calendar and things like that. But also, I will forget. Like I'll 100% forget about this if I don't put it on there. And so for me, it's really helpful for things. I typically use it for things that come at the end of the day, because that's usually for me like the less important things. But coincidentally, those are also the things I'm more likely to forget because they're less important. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I have a bunch that come up during the day. I just find it incredibly helpful because it's really helpful if you don't have many notifications. Like if you have notifications that go off for everything, maybe it's less helpful. But like,
that's probably a good point.
Yeah, it bugs me if I have a notification on there, and so I'll see it and take care of it. And it's I don't know when it's one of those things where it's like when it was told to me, I was like, I feel like such an idiot. I'm sure this has been out since like iPhone 3 or something, but I've just never thought about it. But it's just like one of those little tiny things that's just super helpful.
Yeah. So again, time sensitive things are helpful because, like, let's say someone is going in for surgery at Thursday at 1:00. Well, if you put on your calendar to-do list, like, ask them how it went, or text them that you're praying for them or whatever, but they haven't had the surgery. Like, how'd it go? And it's like, well, they haven't had it yet because you didn't have a time.
Yeah.
I could be like, oh, they're going in at noon. I'll say, remind me at 2 p.m. to text them about surgery. Let's say if it was a minor thing or whatever, or to text their spouse or whatever. But I know I'm not going to do it before I should. So that's when the time-sensitive thing is really helpful, not just the generic do this on this day.
Yep, exactly.
Use Siri Google for time-sensitive reminders. I found that really helpful.
Yep.
Number 4, this one's not new, but it's a good reminder, is to suggest the time and place when meeting with somebody, so you're not going back and forth for forever. And I know, like, the nice thing to do is, well, what works for you? Like, people just don't care, really. They just want it to be on the calendar.
Yeah.
And so, again, what I do, I use Calendly, and they choose the time on their calendar. And we'll say the last point on here, I'll talk about how to have your calendar appear pretty open. Because I'm like, man, like someone texted me on Sunday, they're like, hey, can we get together this week? I have some questions about morality and Christianity, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I just emailed you my Calendly. And I'm like, man, they probably think I don't have a job. I have all the free time in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like Monday through Thursday, the afternoons are pretty much wide open most of the time. But it makes it super easy. So the time is picked, and then I just follow up. And in fact, in my Calendly, it says, you pick the time, I'll follow up with the place. I typically ask them where they're coming from, and then I just suggest something between me and them. And it's super simple. So worry about the time first, the place, and then this place, but you suggest it. And you can suggest the time by using Calendly, and then once they put on the calendar, say, hey, does this work for you? Almost all the time people say yes, because it's like going back and forth. Like, people are fine to drive for the most part, so pick the time and place. It'll make that way easier.
And I think I found it helpful to just have some places in mind that you're going to suggest. Obviously, if someone, a circumstance where they're taking a break from work and you got to drive to them, that's a different story. But if for the majority of the time, it's going to be probably close to either where the church is or where you live, just because that's probably where the majority of people are. And so I just found it easiest to not have to worry about like Googling what's close by or lunch places, because I don't really go out to eat, for lunch very much. So I don't know. I wouldn't know of a lot of places if I didn't look it up, but just have just a handful of ideas that are like, these are cheaper places.
Yep.
These are easy to get to, places like, I find like places like Chipotle and things like that, to where it's like, it's not fast food, but
but most people will eat that.
But most people eat it, and it doesn't. Yeah, and it's like it's fine, but it's also not going to take all day. And I don't know. I just find that really simple. And so for me, there's like a handful of places around the church, and then a handful of places around the house, because I live a little bit further from the church, to where like if it's in the evening I'm meeting with somebody, I'm going to suggest someplace by the house. If it's during the day, it's going to be someplace by the church, and it's a lot easier than trying to go back and forth and see like, what are you in the mood for? What am I in the mood for? And just trying to figure that whole thing out.
So suggest the time and the place. People will say yes. Again, use Calendly, which you talked about before. It's free. You can sync it to your calendar so they can pick from lots of different times, and then follow the place. Pretty much always works.
Yep.
Number 5, we said this recently, and I think the last episode, the one before it, about discouragement in ministry. Recommend working a full Monday. I know people take off different days, but like, discouragement on Monday can be a thing, especially if things didn't go well. It's ironically enough, there's been times where like Sunday went great and I'm like still discouraged on Monday, and like, why? This is awesome. But working a full Monday helps. And so like, I can just say, like, for me, for example, it's pretty, things are, things can change, but it's pretty full. Like, I come in on Monday morning and I review or get my notes ready for this coming Sunday sermon. We do sermon, our message collab thing where we talk through the sermon, one of the sermons in a coming week together. We typically record this on Monday, and I've got like a lot of recurring tasks that I do on Monday. So it's just kind of accounted for, and it's full. And so there's not a lot of sitting around. I don't know. You can't help if you feel discouraged, but it's already full. And again, maybe it works different for different people, but I've just found working a full Monday and like, has been really helpful for me. So
yeah, I think it's helpful just to get back in the groove of a work week after Sunday. Whether it's whether it's a good Sunday or a great Sunday, it can be easy to kind of coast a little bit afterwards. Or if it's a really discouraging Sunday, it can obviously be really easy to kind of like wallow in it. And so I find it really helpful to Monday morning. We're back in the swing of things for a new week. Not saying don't take time off, but typically, at least for us, we take time off at the end of the week before Sunday. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's good to. It's not like we want to forget about Sunday, but I think it's good to be looking to the next thing coming than just thinking about the previous day, whether it was good or bad, and not really thinking about the future. So I don't know. I think it's really helpful to take or to not take Monday off, but to work Monday.
Yeah, and again, I think the most important thing here is finding something that works for you. So like working for Monday works for us.
Yep.
But if you find like Mondays are difficult for you, finding a routine that makes them better. So maybe it's, I don't know, taking the morning off to do something you enjoy, but then working that afternoon, because if you take off the whole Monday, then you're like, meh, or getting up earlier, or maybe, I don't know what it might be. We just found working Mondays helpful for us. But if you feel like Mondays are like meh often, because it's going to happen occasionally no matter what, then try to find a new routine that works for you and don't feel guilty about it. I know one guy who, I have a pastor friend who's kind of adopted more of a 4-day-ish work week, or not. That's not right. What he does is, I think it's Monday. I can't remember if it's Monday or Tuesday. I think he said it was Monday, where he'll work like 10 hours or 11 hours. So work a long Monday on purpose. And it's not necessarily because it's Monday, but it's because like he likes to get a bunch of the stuff finished and then maybe take some more time off on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
And just like with season of life with his wife and with his kids, that it works really well. And so, changing your calendar to where you're getting your stuff done, but also that works well with your family. In ministry, you don't get a lot of employee benefits, but your calendar hopefully is one of those things that you can be a little bit more flexible with. And so if you need to work a longer day or shorter day, whatever it is, just find something that works for you so that every Monday doesn't feel like a drag, if that's what you're experiencing right now.
Yep, exactly.
And then last but not least, plan your next workday at the end of your current workday. So this might sound a little complicated. This is what I have developed over time that I found really helpful. So I'll explain it here. And then,
I'm curious how this is going to be complicated.
Well, it's not really complicated. It's just like, I got to say some stuff.
Okay.
So we talked about having consistent things on the same time at the same days for your calendar. So like sermon prep, or there's certain tasks that you do, or whatever, creative things that take a lot of focus and energy. We recommend doing them at the same times every day or every week if you can. So
Right.
it's like a normal thing. And then there might be, you know, because in ministry, particularly if it depends on what your role is. If you do a lot of admin stuff, it might be different. But if you're like meeting with a lot of, if you're like a volunteer coordinator and you got to meet with a lot of people to do that sort of thing, or if you're, you know, discipling people or just meeting with people in general or whatever, there's this tension of like you have to do the stuff you have to do, but you also have to do things that are a little bit on other people's time.
Yeah.
And how do you do it? Particularly if you use Calendly. So here's what I do. My Calendly, generally speaking, is open from like noon to 5, Monday through Thursday. It is. That's when it's like if I don't have anything going on, people can schedule times. Now there's certain things I have going on certain days, so it's not like it's completely open all those days. But most of those days it is.
Yeah.
But there's also tasks that I need to do every day, or things that'll come up and I'll put on my thing like, hey, I have to do this on Tuesday, I have to do this on Wednesday. What I'll do though is instead of putting it on my calendar, I'll put it in my Todoist so that it doesn't fill up all my days ahead of time, so that when I do like the email thing, if someone wants to meet, they have more time to choose from. And then what I do, like today's a Monday that we're recording this, at the end of today on Monday, the time that I have open for tomorrow, I'll look at my upcoming stuff to do tomorrow or the next couple of days if I need to get to ahead of time or whatever, and I'll start to put it on my calendar so that it will be filled. And so that way also on Tuesday morning, I'm not sitting there wondering what should I do, or doing something that you don't feel motivated to do, even though you should do it, and so you kind of like procrastinate a lot. And so like the next day is accounted for, but it's not accounted for maybe a week or 2 weeks in advance. It's like I have some recurring tasks on my Todoist that just stay on my Todoist, and then when I put them on my calendar, I take them off Todoist. But I put them on Todoist originally, so I don't forget to put them on my calendar. But that way, it stays open for meetings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think it does. I think it's helpful to plan it out the day before, because otherwise, and I've done this a million times, but the first thing you do is sit down and think of what should I do, because no one has one thing to do. Like it's not like maybe a typical office job where you have like one major task or something like that, but it's like there's a lot of things I have to do, and most of them are of like relatively equal importance. And so it's very easy to sit down and then be kind of like paralyzed by indecision by trying to figure out what to do first. And oftentimes it's maybe not the most important thing, or maybe it's something that's easy but not as enjoyable for you, which I do think that's kind of important. And so, for example, for me, because I do all of our video editing here, videos typically are the thing I like to do in the afternoon, because they don't take the types of videos we do don't take a ton of thought, and it's like they're kind of boring. And so I typically like to do it at the end of the day where I'm a little bit more tired and don't have to like put a whole bunch of brain power into it. But on Mondays, we record this on Mondays, but outside of this, our sermon video has to be edited Monday mornings, or as early on Monday as possible, because we want people to be able to find it as much of Monday as possible. So we don't want to publish it at like 5 p.m. And so that's the kind of thing where if I didn't have a Monday planned out, it'd be very easy for me to be like, I'll just do that later. But in reality, it kind of does need to be done in the morning.
Unless I send Brian a calendar invite at 11 p.m. the night before.
Did you do that today?
For this recording.
Was that when I saw it?
Last night.
We have a newborn, and so time is just...
Oh, then it works right now.
I think I saw
all hours.
I literally think I responded yes at like 3 a.m.
Nice.
But like some of this stuff, like we record this, it's done every Monday morning. Sometimes it shifts like half hour, but we kind of, that's flexible enough. But outside of this, my Monday morning is typically editing the sermon video, because we want it done as soon as possible. But if it was just kind of left to whatever I want to do, that would not be done in the morning, and that's kind of something that we need to have done. And so that works for Mondays, but also other days, it's like, I might have something on my desk that's like a form we got in the mail that needs to be filled out or something like that. And I hate having things on my desk. And so if I have nothing planned, then I'll probably do that first, even though that's not urgent and that's something I don't enjoy doing. But it's something I'll spend my morning doing just to get it off my desk. When in reality, that's probably not the best use of time. So planning out the day ahead, I think, is really it's going to make ministry a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, and so regardless if you're trying to like leave your calendar open for meetings or not, this is still helpful.
Yeah.
Of what I'm going to and when for this too, we would recommend it's not just enough to say like here's the things I have to do tomorrow, but start to put them on your calendar the day ahead of time so you know when you're going to actually be doing them. My experience, if it's something that if it takes like less than 30 minutes, I don't put it on my calendar as its own thing. What I'll do is I'll have like a block where I do tasks, and I'll just go through my to-do list or whatever of things that are smaller.
Yeah.
Typically in the afternoon. But if anything's over 30 minutes, I'll put it on the calendar because it needs to be focused on. But the day before, I'll kind of plan whatever I have for the next day so that I can do it. Again, I found that also when you put on your calendar, you do it in the time allotted, oftentimes or many times quicker than the time allotted because you have like a time frame or a deadline, and so it actually makes you more efficient as well.
Yep.
But anyway, if you whatever open spots you have on your next day, put on a calendar. Again, you also you might have some things you do on certain days that it doesn't matter when you do them, and you might have kids stuff going on or whatever, and so it's not like you can do it at the same time every week. But if you put it on your to-do list for Tuesday and it's Monday afternoon, I look at my Tuesday to-do list and I start to put things on the calendar when it's going to work.
Yep.
So plan out your next work day at the end of your current work day, and that will make ministry better and also keep you flexible at the same time.
That's right.
So those are 6 small hacks to help make ministry better. Again, we mentioned practicalplanting.com. That's our website that you can search for keywords. I guess apparently you can do it in Apple Podcasts
You sure
as
can.
well. If you're looking up podcast episodes, you can type whatever you think it is. We always typically use generic terms. So like we call our groups community groups, but we in the titles, they're always small groups because they're like the most general thing. We don't call our volunteers. We call them serve team members, but we say volunteers in the titles, so they're easier. So whatever the generic church things is, hopefully you can find it there. And if you're on Facebook, you can join a Practical Church Planting Facebook group. Lots of people in there asking questions.
Yep.
And thanks for being with us. We'll be with you next week on Practical Church Planting.